Welcome to our deep dive into a topic I'm sure you've all heard of, Agile and Flow. We're going to try to cut through all the hype, give you a real understanding of what these concepts really mean.
That's right.
So we'll be taking a look at two guides, the Scrum Guide
Yeah.
and the Flow System Guide.
Okay.
Our mission today is to really unpack the core principles and the methods, the mindsets even,
Absolutely.
that these systems advocate, so you can actually use this knowledge to boost your own productivity.
Yeah.
And problem solving in really any field.
Yeah. And how these approaches can really help teams not only survive, but thrive
Yeah,
in a world that feels increasingly complex and unpredictable.
absolutely.
And doing that by using these methods that, while coming from different origins, have a lot of overlap and a lot of really useful insights.
For sure. So let's start with Scrum. The Scrum Guide defines Scrum as a lightweight framework,
Okay.
which I think is funny because it's a pretty dense guide,
Yeah,
but it's packed with powerful ideas.
it is.
One of the key concepts is sprints.
Mhm.
So imagine like breaking down a giant project
Right.
into these short bursts of focused work.
Okay.
That's essentially what a sprint is.
Yeah. And I think what's interesting about sprints is how it really helps you to tackle uncertainty. You know, instead of getting bogged down by trying to plan everything up front, you're delivering value in these small pieces and constantly learning and adapting along the way. It's kind of like navigating a ship through really rough waters.
Yeah.
You need to be able to adjust your course.
Totally. As you encounter new obstacles, so I'm thinking about these huge projects that can feel so overwhelming, breaking it down into these sprints
Right.
must make it so much easier to get started and actually make progress. But Scrum isn't just about sprints.
It's not. Yeah.
It also really emphasizes self-managing teams.
Yes, absolutely. And in Scrum, you have a team with very clear roles. You have the product owner who sets the vision for the project. You have the Scrum Master who facilitates the process. And you have the developers who are actually doing the work. And these teams are empowered to make decisions and really figure out the best way to get things done.
So it's like giving the team ownership and trust
Right.
instead of like micromanaging every step.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, wouldn't that create chaos?
Well, that's where the structure of Scrum comes in. It's not just a free-for-all. There are specific events that are built into each sprint that help the team stay on track
Uh-huh.
and adapt as needed. And so, for example, you have daily scrums
Okay.
where everyone quickly shares what they're working on, what roadblocks they might be facing, and what they plan to achieve that day.
Gotcha.
Just keeps everyone aligned
Yeah.
and helps identify any issues early on.
So it's like a mini huddle each day
Exactly.
to make sure everyone's on the same page. I can see
Exactly.
how that would create a sense of shared responsibility, keep things moving smoothly.
Yeah.
Speaking of keeping things moving, let's shift gears to the Flow System Guide.
Okay.
So the Flow System Guide really builds on that iterative approach we see in Scrum, but it acknowledges this interconnected nature of our modern world.
Yeah.
While it has roots in lean manufacturing
Yeah.
with a focus on efficiency,
Right.
Flow goes beyond just eliminating waste.
Absolutely.
It's about optimizing the entire system for adaptability and responsiveness to change.
Exactly.
So if Scrum is like navigating a ship
Uh-huh.
through choppy waters,
Mhm.
is Flow more like surfing? Like riding the waves of change rather than
Uh-huh.
fighting against them?
That's a great analogy.
Okay, good.
Yeah, it really is. You know, flow recognizes that change is constant, and we need to be able to adjust quickly and smoothly. And so one of the key concepts that helps with this is the triple helix of flow,
Okay.
which is essentially the DNA of a truly agile organization. It weaves together three essential strands: complexity thinking, distributed leadership, and team science.
Okay, that sounds pretty intense.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Can you break that down a bit further? Starting with complexity thinking. When I think about complexity thinking, I think about those knotty problems where everything feels connected, and one small change can have these huge ripple effects.
You're exactly right. You know, complexity thinking, it really moves beyond that traditional management approach that often relies on the illusion of control and prediction.
Okay.
It's about accepting that we can't predict everything, and instead developing the tools to understand and to navigate uncertainty. So imagine you're trying to solve a problem,
Yeah.
but you don't even know what kind of problem it is.
Uh-huh.
The Sinafin framework helps you figure that out
Okay.
by categorizing problems based on their level of complexity.
Gotcha.
It's like having a map to guide you through different types of challenges.
That's so helpful because I feel like sometimes you're using a hammer to solve a problem that needs a screwdriver.
That's right.
So the Cinefin framework gives you the right tool
Exactly.
for the job,
It helps you choose the right approach based on the nature of the problem.
yeah, which is really essential for navigating complexity effectively. Okay, so complexity thinking starting to make sense. What about distributed leadership? Does that mean we all get to be the boss?
Not quite.
Okay, good.
But it is about recognizing that in today's world, leadership can come from anyone on the team. Instead of having a single leader at the top calling all the shots, we distribute leadership,
Okay.
empowering everyone to contribute their unique skills and insights. It's really about creating a culture where people feel safe to speak up, share ideas, and take ownership.
So it's fostering a sense of like collective responsibility,
Exactly. Yeah.
ownership. I imagine that ties into the third strand
It does.
of the triple helix, team science.
Absolutely. Team science focuses on creating high-performing, psychologically safe teams. It goes beyond just putting people together and hoping for the best. You need to deliberately build trust, encourage open communication, and value diverse perspectives.
It's like a sports team. You know, you can't just throw a bunch of talented athletes together and expect them to win a championship. They need to train together, communicate effectively, and trust each other on the field.
You got it. That's a great analogy. And just like a sports team, successful teams in any context need to have that shared understanding, open communication, and that strong sense of camaraderie. They need to be able to support each other, work together towards that common goal.
Okay, so we've got these two really powerful systems, Scrum and Flow. They approach agility from slightly different angles, but ultimately they aim to help teams thrive in this world that is constantly changing.
Right.
But before we dive deeper into how to apply these concepts, there's one more piece of the puzzle that I'm curious about.
I bet I know what you're thinking about. That Harvard Business Review article about the rugby approach to product development.
You read my mind.
Yeah.
It seems a little surprising to connect rugby to these concepts.
It does. It does.
But I'm very eager to see how it all ties together.
You're in for a treat. Turns out there are some striking similarities between that rugby approach and the principles of both Scrum and Flow. And what's even more fascinating is that these ideas were being explored, decades before Scrum and Flow became popular.
Okay, now I'm really intrigued. Let's unpack that surprising connection in the next part of our deep dive.
Welcome back to our deep dive into Agile and Flow. We just talked about the core principles of Scrum and Flow.
Yeah.
And now let's look at how those concepts translate into real-world success. The best way to do that is to look at some concrete examples.
Yeah.
Remember that Harvard Business Review article we talked about?
Yep.
The new product development game?
Yeah.
Full of these fascinating case studies of companies that actually implement these principles.
Okay.
Even before the terms Agile and Flow were really commonplace.
Like those Japanese companies.
Exactly. The ones that really revolutionized product development.
Honda, Canon.
Yep.
Fuji, Xerox.
Exactly. They really seem to crack the code on innovation. And their stories really offer a wealth of insights that are still so relevant today.
Okay.
Take Fuji Xerox, for example.
Okay.
They had this challenge of developing their FX3500 copier.
Okay.
With, aggressive cost targets, tight timeline, and traditional methods just wouldn't have cut it.
So how did they approach this challenge?
So they created what they called the sashimi system,
Okay.
which was this visual metaphor for their overlapping development phases.
Okay.
And so picture slices of sashimi on a plate,
Okay.
each one slightly overlapping the next. That's how they structured their workflow.
Okay.
Breaking down those silos between departments, fostering that constant communication,
Gotcha.
feedback.
That's such a clever way to visualize it.
Yeah.
It's like taking those overlapping phases from that rugby approach we talked about and giving it this unique Japanese spin. Did the sashimi system actually work?
It did.
Okay.
It did. They significantly reduced their development time. And they created a copier that exceeded their cost and performance goals. It's a testament to the power of breaking down silos and fostering that collaboration.
I'm starting to see how these abstract concepts can be translated into tangible practices.
Yeah.
The sashimi system's a great example. Are there other key takeaways from these Japanese companies?
Absolutely.
Oh.
Another important lesson is their emphasis on multi-learning,
Okay.
which is all about fostering learning across multiple levels. individual, team, and organizational,
Okay.
and across different functions, different disciplines.
So it's not just about individuals becoming experts
No.
in their own narrow areas.
Exactly.
It's about creating a culture where knowledge is constantly being shared.
That's right.
And
right.
everyone's learning from each other.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not passive learning.
Okay.
They encourage their employees to learn by doing, embracing trial and error, actively seeking feedback.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
In a complex world, you can't anticipate everything.
Right.
You have to adapt and learn as you go. Did these companies have specific strategies for promoting multi-learning?
They did. So, for instance, Honda, they sent their engineers to Europe to immerse themselves in the automotive landscape for their city car project. They really wanted their engineers to experience the market firsthand. Gather inspiration, bring back new ideas.
It's so much more effective than just keeping them isolated in a lab.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It shows a real commitment to learning.
It does.
From diverse sources. Were there any other interesting examples?
There were. So Canon, they encouraged their engineers to spend time in toy stores, observing how children interacted with different gadgets. It was a way to gain these insights into user behavior and preferences long before user research became a formal discipline.
That's brilliant, like real-world research.
It is.
In this fun and engaging way.
Yeah, it's like they were really tapping into the power of observation, drawing inspiration from these unexpected places.
Probably.
And they understood that learning is only valuable if it's shared.
Okay.
Right. So they use techniques like strategic personnel rotations, moving key individuals from successful projects to new teams, ensuring that knowledge and experience were being disseminated throughout the organization.
So they were constantly building on those successes,
Yeah.
extracting those valuable lessons, and spreading that knowledge throughout the company. It's almost like compounding interest
Yes.
for organizational learning.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And, they didn't just focus on learning from their successes.
Okay.
They also emphasized the importance of unlearning,
Okay.
challenging those outdated assumptions,
Yeah.
questioning traditional practices, being willing to let go of what no longer serves them.
That's so important because it's easy to get stuck in those old patterns,
Yeah.
especially if they've worked in the past. But in a rapidly changing world, clinging to those outdated approaches can really hold you back.
Right.
These companies recognize that.
They did. They understood that to stay ahead of the curve, they needed to be constantly evolving, adapting, and embracing new ways of thinking.
This is all incredibly inspiring. These principles could be applied to far beyond product development.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's about building a more adaptable and responsive organization,
Yeah.
no matter what industry you're in.
Exactly right. It's about embracing that mindset of continuous improvement, collaboration, and customer focus. They really provide that framework for navigating complexity, achieving success in a constantly changing world.
So how do we as individuals and teams actually start implementing these principles in our own work?
Yeah.
Do we need to completely overhaul our entire organizational structure and become like rugby fanatics overnight?
Not at all.
Okay, good.
You don't need this radical transformation to start benefiting from these ideas. Remember, Scrum emphasizes starting small. And iterating. And the same principle applies here. You can start by introducing small changes, experimenting, seeing what works best.
Baby steps.
Exactly. But where do we focus those steps?
Yeah.
What are some practical things we can do to actually bring more agility and flow into our work?
That's a great question. And that's actually one that we'll explore in the final part of our deep dive.
Okay.
We'll delve into some specific techniques and tools and strategies, things that you can actually start using today.
Awesome.
To enhance your team's performance, boost your own productivity,
Okay.
and navigate the complexities of the modern world with more confidence and grace.
I am eager to learn more. It feels like we're about to uncover a treasure trove of practical advice.
We are. And I'm confident that you'll walk away with some really valuable insights that you can apply to your own work and life.
We've explored the principles of Agile and flow. We saw how companies like Fuji Xerox and Honda use these ideas to achieve success, and now it's time for the most important part. How do you use this knowledge to make a real difference in your own work and life? You got it. It's not just about admiring what others have done.
Right.
It's about what you can do yourself.
So where do we begin? What are some concrete steps?
The first step is a mental shift. Remember, Agile and flow are all about embracing uncertainty, empowering teams,
Okay.
not clinging to these rigid plans or trying to micromanage every detail.
That sounds great in theory, but letting go of that illusion of control can be tough,
Yeah.
especially in environments that are used to those traditional hierarchies and procedures.
It can be, but even small changes can make a big impact. One practical tip
Okay.
is to experiment with more iterative approaches. Instead of trying to map out this massive project in advance, break it down into smaller, more manageable chunks.
Okay.
Focus on delivering value incrementally, just like those sprints in Scrum.
It's like that saying, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? Makes those daunting tasks seem much less overwhelming.
Exactly. And as you work through those iterations, remember the inspect and adapt cycle. Regularly ask yourself what's working, what's not working, and what can we adjust
Yeah.
for the next step.
This reminds me of that subtle control concept
Uh-huh.
from that rugby article. It's not about micromanaging, but it is about creating a structure for accountability
Right.
and course correction.
Yeah. It's about finding that balance, encouraging experimentation
Right.
without letting things descend into chaos. And it's about creating a culture where mistakes are seen as valuable learning opportunities,
Yeah.
not something to be punished.
That culture of psychological safety seems really crucial.
It is.
How do we actually foster that,
Yeah.
especially in environments that might be more risk averse?
Yeah. That's a great question. It starts with leadership. Leaders really need to model open communication, truly listen to their team's concerns, create that space where everyone feels safe speaking up, sharing ideas,
Yeah.
even if they challenge the status quo.
So it's not just about saying the right words.
No.
It's about walking the walk,
Right.
creating that culture of trust
That-
through action.
Exactly. Recognizing and celebrating those who take initiative even if they stumble along the way. You know, it's about creating a space where people feel empowered to experiment, try new things, knowing they're going to be supported.
This makes me think of the Flow System Guide's emphasis on team science.
Yes.
It's about intentionally building high-performing teams,
Yeah,
not just throwing people together and hoping for the best.
absolutely. Yeah. You know, team science teaches us that trust, open communication, and valuing diverse perspectives are essential for a team to thrive. Think about it. A successful sports team isn't just about individual talent.
Right.
It's about how well those individuals work together, how well they communicate,
Yeah.
they support each other.
So how do we actually put this team science into practice? Are there specific tools,
Absolutely.
like techniques we can use?
Borrowing from Scrum, you can incorporate regular retrospectives into your workflow.
Okay. Aren't retrospectives just like meetings where people complain about what went wrong?
Not at all. A well-run retrospective.
Okay. Is a structured opportunity for the team to reflect, not just on what could be improved, but also on what went well. It's this blame-free zone for constructive feedback.
Okay.
Collaborative problem solving.
It's like a team huddle to strategize.
Right.
Not a finger-pointing session.
Exactly. Exactly. And there are other tools you can use, like visual management boards, to track progress and identify bottlenecks. Daily stand-up meetings can help keep everyone aligned. Regular communication rituals can foster transparency and knowledge sharing.
This is starting to feel like a toolbox for team success.
It is.
But it's not just about teams, is it? We can apply these principles to our individual work as well.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. You know, personal agility is the foundation
Okay.
for team agility. Apply these principles to your own workflow. Break down those large tasks into smaller chunks. Set clear goals. Schedule those dedicated time blocks for focused work.
It's like creating those mini sprints for your own productivity. It makes those big goals feel much more achievable.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the importance of continuous learning.
Yeah.
Dedicate time each week to explore new ideas, develop your skills, seek feedback.
That's a great reminder. It's so easy to get caught up in the daily grind and forget to invest in ourselves.
That's right. And remember, learning isn't limited to formal training courses.
Oh,
Stay curious, stay observant, and actively seek out new information and diverse perspectives.
this has been an incredible deep dive.
It has.
We've covered so much.
We have.
From the theory to practical tips, I feel energized and ready to embrace complexity and change with a lot more confidence.
That's the spirit. And remember, this is just the beginning. Agile and flow are ongoing practices, not destinations. Experiment, adapt, and discover what works best for you and your team.
To all of you out there, embrace the Scrum, foster the flow, and keep diving deep. Keep learning, keep growing, and keep those creative sparks flying. Until next time.